Today on CityCast Denver, from the quote-unquote Vegas-style shooting plot to the wildfire smoke filling our skies, we're taking a look back at the news of the week. Today is Friday, July 16th, 2021. I'm Paul Caroli, and this is CityCast Denver. I'm here with CityCast producer Alexander McMahon.
Hey, Paul, how was your week?
It was fine. And so I'm also joined by a special guest this week. It's a good friend of mine, Donnie Betts. Donnie, welcome to CityCast.
Hey, thank you, Paul. I'm happy to be here.
So listeners, you're going to be hearing more from Donnie next week. Donnie is going to be guest hosting a week of the show. It is very special. I'm very excited. So let's take a few minutes just at the top here to get to know Donnie a little bit. Donnie, I know you as a theater actor, director, playwright, award-winning filmmaker, activist, inventor, podcaster, etc. But I think the project of yours that has really clicked with me the most is your award-winning radio drama series, Destination Freedom Black Radio Days, which is inspired by or a continuation of a radio show by the same name from around 60 years ago. And I think that might be a really good way for listeners to get to know you better and your perspective. Can you tell us about that project and where it came from?
I sure can. Thank you so much, Paul. That is a definite passion of mine and a love affair that I've had for the last over 20 years now with Destination Freedom Black Radio Days. Originally, the series started in 1948 on WMAQ in Chicago. The series of 93 audio dramas was written by one man, Richard Durham, who's one of the first Blacks to be inducted into the Radio Hall of Fame. I came to the series in 1998, 99 at KUVO Radio here in Denver, Colorado, eventually moved in 2001 to KGNU Radio. This series was about African-American Black people who were seeking freedom from persecution. So it talked about individuals like, say, Jackie Robinson or Mary McLeod Bethune. But I also dealt with events, like we talked about segregation, we talked about gentrification at that time in Chicago. So this was fascinating to me. And I thought it related to what's happening in our country today. So I still continue that series. I produce it as a podcast now, Destination Freedom Black Radio Days. We do original as well as we pay homage to the original shows. So we switch between new shows that are being written now by myself and other writers, and also going back to some of the original shows and giving it a new, fresh take.
And it's an excellent series that listeners should definitely make some time for this weekend before hearing Donnie's first show hosting CityCast Denver on Monday. But in the meantime, let's talk about some news. Alexandra, what do you think was the top story of the week this week?
I wish it wasn't this, but I really think that the top story was the Maven Hotel bust from over the weekend that led into All-Star Week and had everyone initially in a tizzy about basically what happened was 4 people were arrested at the Maven Hotel over the weekend because a hotel housekeeper discovered like 16 long guns, a bunch of body armor. And so she told her manager, they called the police. The police did a raid of the rooms and the cars, and they found all these weapons and drugs, but that didn't come out later. And basically media took that and just ran with it, which and I don't want to say media with a capital M because I'm a part of the media too, but I was disappointed in how early coverage of that was handled, because then you saw the headlines that basically said Vegas style massacre averted and, all these things that basically drew lines to the Las Vegas mass shooting. And it turned out it wasn't that at all. It was a drug bust, a drug deal, a weapons deal. And because one officer made mention that it's kind of scary that it was this close to Coors Field on All-Star Week, some journalists chose to take that and blow it out of proportion.
Donnie, did this story cross into your internet? Did you see this?
I did hear about this story, and I agree that it was so overblown and misreported that it was really kind of sickening, because with as many shootings and as much violence as we have in this country, we don't need any stories like that to exaggerate that it could have been a possibility of a mass shooting when it was indeed just a drug bust. I will applaud once again the housekeeper who went in. I'm glad they're keeping her name out of the news too. that went in, because normally what happened at the mass shooting in Las Vegas is they never went into the room. So in this case, somebody went into the room and everything was averted. So we just applaud that housekeeper for basically doing her due diligence and alerting authorities and alerting to management that something was not right.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. And I remember, speaking to the media angle on this, like Xander, you and I on Sunday, we were seeing this all roll out, and we were talking about this over the course of the day. Like, how are we going to cover this? And there was times when I was unsure. That phrase, Las Vegas style shooting, Las Vegas style shooting. It was just, it got in my head, and I was thinking, don't we have a responsibility to say this, that this was a possibility? And the FBI office was like, we have no reason to exclude that as a possible explanation for this occurrence, but it doesn't. We also don't have any evidence to support it. At the same time, the arrest was already made. Like, I guess I don't put as much credence on the explanation of this as like fear mongering on the part of the press by using that phrase, by pointing to that possibility, because the people who would have supposedly been involved with this plot had been arrested. Like,
yeah, like no matter what they were doing, the threat was eliminated.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. But I don't know. This is just my plea to news outlets. Like, just take a minute, take a beat, think before you publish that headline.
Yeah.
Anyways, enough of my soapbox. Paul, what about you? What top story caught your eye this week?
Well, for me, it wasn't really like one story, but this was a week where I was really thinking about climate change a lot. Like, I listened to an episode of The Daily, I think it was Wednesday, maybe it was Tuesday morning, where they were talking about the heat wave in the Pacific Northwest. And there was this moment where the reporter who was on was talking about this migrant who had come over, who had paid somebody $8,000 to help them get across the border, and they needed to find work in Portland. So they were working as a farm worker, and when it started to get really, really hot, they needed the money to pay what they owed to this person who helped them get across the border. So they felt all this pressure to be working during the heat wave and died because of it. And that story just really like hit home for me. And because I was outside when I was listening, and I looked up to our sky, and I just saw this huge plume of wildfire smoke and realized this is never going away. This is what our lives are now in the summer, just forever. It's going to get worse and worse, and poor people are going to be affected more than anyone else. And it's an awful hell world we live in now.
Yeah.
So that's my top story. Super depressing. Donnie, how do you think about climate change on a day-to-day basis? Do the wildfires get you down?
I would say yes. I grew up in Northeast Texas, and we had fires a lot too. Then I moved to California, and there were still fires. Now I'm in Colorado, and there's still fires. So we're talking about over the course of 40 or so years that they've just gotten more intense and worse, and more acreage being burned. So not only do I think about wildfires, I think about, in my case, the way weather was so severe, and now in Texas, and now it's just as severe in Colorado, meaning things like tornadoes, wildfires, mudslides. It's just a constant, and mudslides are a result from the wildfires, so that the growth is not there to protect after we get big rainfall. So it's just been very scary this summer. And I think about, I have 3 grandsons. I think about how it's going to impact them. And part of what they've been doing last year in school was talking about this, climate change, and how it impacts their generation.
Yeah, it just gives me flashbacks to growing up in Colorado Springs. And I was in high school when like the Black Forest fire happened and the Waldo Canyon fire happened. And now everyone knows how old I am. But,
Well, I talked about grandsons, so you're okay.
But yeah, it's, and those fires in Colorado Springs were so bad. I mean, it was just like fire all around us and ash just falling from the sky every day, and not being able to like see, more than 10 feet in front of you on bad smoke days. It was ridiculous. So every time summer comes around and there's wildfire smoke in the air, I think about that time, and I just think about how many people have lost homes. And yeah, it's a bummer. And but also it's so normalized now. Like, I was out at Green Mountain Reservoir a couple of weekends ago, and was like we got out of the car, we're like, oh yeah, wildfire smoke. Okay, well, we'll just go on with our day. It's just like it's gonna smell like smoke all day.
All right, let's move on. Donnie, was there a story this week that came out that just made you go, I don't need to pay attention to this?
In-N-Out Burger. As someone who lived in California at one time and tried In-N-Out Burger when I was eating those type of things, which I don't anymore, it's like, really? Seriously? I drive by where I live in Aurora and see the lines waiting for people to go in, and I still don't get it. It's still just a burger. It's just meat between two buns. Okay. So I don't care. I really didn't care about it. And I don't see why it's still getting press. Now, people need work, and the people that work there, they deserve to get a salary and that sort of stuff. But otherwise, to have a story about it each and every time there's a new one opening, or if the lines are long, it's just not worth our attention.
No, we couldn't agree more with you, Donnie. I mean, we did a whole episode back in June rating burgers in Denver. In-N-Out was one of them. And yeah, we didn't understand it either. We're like, why are people going crazy over this burger? It's nothing that special, and I don't need to see a story about it. I also think that it's insane that when the Lakewood one opened, Lakewood police had to tweet out drive-through instructions with a map so people wouldn't create a traffic hazard. Like, we're at that point where the police department needs to give you detailed instructions on how to go through a drive-through lane.
Wow.
Tax dollars at work. I love it.
What about you, Paul?
For me, the thing that made me go meh was it was just another one of these lists. Like the Denver named most healthy city in the country, Denver named most blah, 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 whatever in the country. And this week it was the U.S. News and World Report saying Denver named among the best places to live. And I guess we were number 14 or something on that list. And whenever I see something like this, I remember one of my first journalism jobs, I got a press release announcing one of these bullshit lists. And I didn't know how it worked. Like, I didn't know what my job was, which was just write it up and publish it and get all the clicks that these things normally generate. And I asked for an interview. So I talked to the person who put together the subject, and I asked the questions you always ask: who, what, where, when, and why. And why they put together this list. The answer was so illuminating, because this person told me, I'll remember this to this day. I always think about it when I see these. She said, we're a consulting company and we create these lists to attract business. That's it.
Really?
So every time I see it, I'm like, well, what's their motive here? Like, what is U.S. News and World Report trying to get out of this?
This is just a commercial. Like, that's basically what you're reading.
It's a commercial. So anytime you see one of those lists, like, think for a second, like, who's benefiting from this? What does this list mean? Why is this in front of you right now?
Right. Do we really need to be sharing it on every platform?
All right, let's move on to our final prompt, our final topic. What is something you did in Denver recently that brought you joy? Exandra?
Well, it's not something that's super special to Denver, but I finally got to go and sit in a movie theater again for the first time since before the pandemic, and it was so great. And what was even cooler was now that we live downtown, I got to walk to the theater. Like, we went to the theater on 16th Street Mall, which, 16th Street Mall is fine, but it's the closest theater to us. And it was just nice to be able to walk because, it built in some time for me and my girlfriend to chat about the movie afterwards and, have our analysis. And then also, you're walking off all of that popcorn and junk food. So it was great. Sure. It was very fun and a great re-entry into the movie theater experience.
What'd you see?
Oh, Black Widow, of course.
Yeah, did you like it?
Yeah, I loved it. We're a big MCU nerd family, so we get down on all those.
All right, Donnie, how about you? What's something you did in Denver recently that brought you joy?
Well, I'll tell you, last Sunday, I met with a group of friends, about 6 of us, Black men, and we just broke bread together. We all made dishes. Mostly I made most of the dishes myself. So, just to make sure that there was food there, so, and nobody just brought chips and things like that. But we just broke bread together. We talked about current events like we're doing now. We talked about how we've been dealing with the pandemic and opening back up, how comfortable we felt being around each other still. And most of us hadn't seen each other probably in a year and a half, if not longer. And it was good.
I recently, I spent some time with somebody that I hadn't seen since before the pandemic. And I don't know, I'm eager to hear if you had the same experience, but this person that I'm thinking of changed a lot. Like, he became a pizza making expert, and he was like making us pizza, and he also grew a mustache. So he kind of like became this like pizza making, I don't know, almost a caricature. Did you have that experience with any of your friends? Had anybody changed a lot?
Yeah, I mean, most of them had changed. A physical appearance is very interesting because for me, I probably changed the most. I've never had a beard in my life because I never thought I could grow it. I always had a lot of hair on my head, which I don't now. I used to have very long dreadlocks, which are gone some years ago. But now I have a beard, and my COVID beard, and it's all white, and I'm very proud of it. It needs to be trimmed now. So everybody were commenting on that.
Oh, Paul, what's something that you did in Denver recently that brought you joy?
Okay. Well, I was going to talk about something else, but then Donnie, when you and I were driving around yesterday to do these different recordings that listeners are going to hear next week,
Yes.
I was listening to this new album from a Denver band called 10th Mountain Division, which, I mean, that's why I was listening. That name caught my eye. I love that historical reference. The album's called Butte La Rose. They play this, what they call like ski rock. I think it's almost a jam band, but I was really loving it. And maybe that would be a nice way to go out on this episode. Just a little taste of one of the songs off of 10th Mountain Division's Butte La Rose.
That's beautiful. I love that.
Ski rock. So now we've got surf rock, and now we've got ski rock.
Also, how Colorado is that?
It's so also, Paul, what is the history with 10th Mountain Division? I don't know it.
Oh my God. This is like one of Colorado's best stories. It's World War II, right? And the U.S. Army sees war coming to Europe. Like, they know that the theater of war is going to enter Europe. And in Italy, there's these big, tall mountains. So the U.S. Army's like, we're going to have guys that know how to ski if we're going to be doing some fighting in mountains. So the 10th Mountain Division was like soldiers that were trained to ski as part of their soldierly duties. And then they went and were deployed in Italy, and they fought battles. And then they all came back to Colorado where they were trained, and you can go stay in the huts. Like, that's like part of the legacy of this unit. And these guys all came back from the war, and they started skiing companies. Like, that's part of why Colorado has such a strong skiing industry today, is because of this weird little corner of World War II history.
Huh.
Well explained, Paul. Also, if you can make it to there, you can go to History Colorado. They have a lot. I think they used to have, well, I know they had an exhibit before because I helped put it together about the 10th. And so that's all kind of artifacts there and background and so on and so forth that you can go and see and read about.
Yeah, it's truly fascinating.
I've lived in Colorado all my life, and now I'm finally learning this history. Thank you, Paul and Donnie.
Wow.
The winds of Wyoming, crying fire, burning brighter than the morning star, living so close.
Okay, listeners, before we go, there's one favor I'd like to ask of you, and it's an easy one. Tell us what you think about the show. Do you want the show to be a daily Casa Bonita update? Daily updates from Casa Bonita. Is it reopening? Do we talk about it every day? If you make a strong enough case, maybe we'll do that. Probably not, but maybe. Either way, let us know what you think. We got a listener survey. I'm going to put a link in the show notes to this episode. And if you fill it out, you'll be entered to win a chance at $100. That's pretty cool. All right, Donnie, Xandra, thanks for joining me. Happy Friday.
Hey, right back at you.
Yeah, thanks, Paul.
That's all for us today here on CityCast Denver. Xander McMahon hosted the show this week. Our producers were me, Paul Caroli, Lizzie Goldsmith, and Natalie Rivera. Peyton Garcia writes our morning newsletter. Our music is by Los Mocochetes with additional mixing by Tyler Lindgren, plus probably some more tracks from the Epidemic Sound library. If you haven't already, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, follow us on Twitter @CityCastDenver, and tell a friend about us next time you see him. You can sign up for that daily newsletter and learn more about us at denver.citycast.fm. See you next week. Donnie's going to be hosting the show for a week. And until then, I hope you have a really good weekend. Today on the one and only CityCast.